Imagine, you've spent a lifetime building a reputation, being known for your generosity, always there to lend a hand. And then that trust is shattered by, well, the unthinkable,
Yeah.
betrayal. And not just by anyone.
Right.
By someone you love, someone you thought was family.
Yeah. It's a really tough thing to even think about.
And the thing is, it happens more often than you'd think. We're diving deep today into elder abuse, and I'm telling you, it's a lot closer to home than a lot of people realize.
Oh, absolutely. It's unsettling. We're always on guard for strangers, but the truth is the most devastating betrayals often happen right under our noses, within families, behind closed doors.
Right.
And the motives are often as simple as they are heartbreaking: greed, impatience, just this wanting what someone else has.
Yeah. So let's unpack this, and we're going to do that through a case. The case of Marina Calabro, an 84-year-old woman from Quincy, Massachusetts. Marina was really a pillar of her community. Yeah. She was a hairdresser for over 40 years, finally retired and, enjoying her well-deserved golden years. And she was active, took care of her property, always greeted the neighborhood children with a smile and a piece of candy.
Sounds like someone who really, embraced her community, brought a lot of joy to people. It makes what happened to her all the more heartbreaking.
Yeah, and what happened to her was unimaginable. You see, at first, it was thought she had suffered a tragic accident, a fall down the stairs in her home. But it turned out to be, well, a carefully planned murder.
Oh, wow.
And the person responsible, her own great-nephew, Anthony, only 19 years old.
Wow. Cases like this, they really bring to light a disturbing trend in elder abuse. And that's financial gain. I mean, in this case, Anthony stood to inherit a significant sum from Marina's will, but he wasn't willing to wait.
It's that deadly combination, impatience and greed. That's what led him to recruit two of his teenage friends, Thomas Lai and Jason Weir,
Right.
to help him carry out this horrific plan.
Yeah.
It's a chilling reminder, that evil can wear a young face.
It's important to remember, though, that while Anthony might have been the so-called mastermind behind this,
Sure.
Lai and Weir were not innocent bystanders. They made the choice to participate. And those choices, they had devastating consequences.
And the thing is, they were so calculated in their actions. I mean, they were cold, terrifying, and they drew inspiration from, get this, websites and TV shows. They planned the murder so meticulously, they even laid down newspapers to soak up the blood.
Gosh.
I mean, that one detail just speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About, the premeditation, their utter disregard for human life.
Absolutely. And the fact that they sought out information from media sources, it's a sobering reminder of how information, regardless of its intent, can be manipulated, can be used for really bad things.
It really makes you think about the impact of what we consume, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, back to that awful day. They waited for Marina to come home.
Yeah.
And that's when the attack began. Lai, wielding a cast iron skillet, hit Marina with such force that the handle broke off.
Yes.
He then used a tea kettle to continue the assault.
It's difficult to even comprehend that level of brutality, especially against an elderly woman.
It gets worse. Marina, she fought back.
Ow.
Despite her age, she scratched Lai's face, bit his arm. She screamed for help, but it just wasn't enough.
Oh, that's just awful.
When Lai realized that strangling her was just too difficult, he took a pillow and held it over her face, suffocating her.
Yeah.
And here's what's truly chilling. Marina's last words were Lai shouting, "Let go! Anthony wants it this way."
Gosh, just imagine the terror she must have felt to realize in those final moments that she was betrayed by her own family.
It's a detail that sticks with you. And it really underscores, the depravity at the heart of this case. So they tried to cover their tracks. They carried her body to the top of the stairs, staged it to look like an accident. And then they waited hours before calling the police. They thought they were so clever. They thought they had the perfect plan. But like most criminals, they made mistakes.
Right.
Cracks began to show.
It's often those seemingly small details, right, that trip people up.
Exactly. Anthony, flush with his newfound wealth, he went on a spending spree. He bought a brand new Corvette, big screen TVs. He even spent over $80,000 on military equipment, including grenade launchers.
Wow. That's quite a change in spending habits.
Right. Talk about a red flag.
Yeah.
It was as if he wanted to get caught. Like he was screaming, "Look at me!" And someone did. A friend of his, Jim Morrill, became Anthony's unwilling confidant.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, maybe seeking some kind of validation or just unable to bear the weight of his guilt, confessed everything to Jim. And to his credit, Jim, along with his father, did the right thing.
Right?
They went to the police.
Yeah. Good for them. I mean, that's real courage to come forward like that.
Absolutely. So armed with this information, the police put together a risky plan. They asked Jim to wear a wire to try to get a confession from Jason Weir.
Oh, wow.
They set up a meeting at a McDonald's in Norton. Can you imagine the tension, the weight on Jim's shoulders?
Yeah.
Knowing he was walking into a potentially dangerous situation.
Right.
All to bring justice for Marina.
That's incredible bravery. I mean, undercover operations like that, they require so much composure.
It was a huge gamble, but it paid off.
Yeah.
Weir, completely unaware he was being recorded, confessed his role in the murder. This confession, along with the physical evidence and the testimonies from neighbors, really built a strong case against all three young men.
So they had them. They had enough to charge them.
They did. But road to justice, it was far from over.
Correct.
Yeah, the wheels of justice, they turn slowly. It can be frustrating, especially in a case like this. But in March of 2006, Thomas Lye finally faced trial.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big moment, right? I mean, the prosecution they built this meticulous case. They laid out the premeditation, the brutality of the attack, the sheer indifference of the defendants.
And what about Lye's defense? Did he try to shift the blame at all?
Oh, he did. He tried to pin it on a Weir. He claimed that Weir was the one who delivered the fatal blows.
It's a common strategy.
Yeah.
You know, when there's more than one person involved, they try to create doubt to minimize their own responsibility.
Right. But the evidence, the physical evidence, Weir's testimony, it all pointed to Lye. And after deliberating for 5 hours, the jury reached a verdict.
And
Guilty. First-degree murder.
wow.
Lye was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
It's a small victory for justice, but it doesn't erase the pain, does it? I mean, for Marina and her loved ones.
Mm-hmm. It's a reminder that these crimes, they leave scars that run much deeper than any legal outcome can ever address.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Lye's sentencing, it seemed to have a profound impact on Anthony.
Okay.
Maybe the thought of spending his life behind bars finally got to him. Because he changed his plea to guilty. Second-degree murder. He even expressed remorse in court. But the judge wasn't buying it. He wasn't convinced by Anthony's, 11th hour repentance. And he sentenced him to life with the possibility of parole after 15 years.
So Anthony's guilty plea, I mean, it offers some sense of accountability, right?
Yeah.
But it still leaves you wondering about the sincerity of his remorse.
Yeah.
I mean, was it genuine, or was it just, a calculated move to get a lighter sentence?
Yeah, it's hard to know what's truly going on in someone's heart, especially in a case like this.
Right.
Now, Jason Weir, the third person involved, he took a different path. In exchange for his testimony against Lye, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter, and he received a reduced sentence, 10 years, with credit for time served.
So a plea bargain, they can be really controversial, can't they? I mean, they expedite the legal process, but they can also leave the victims and their families feeling like justice wasn't really served.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, trying to ensure justice while navigating the complexities of the legal system.
Mm-hmm.
And just when you thought this legal saga was over, there's a twist.
What's that?
After the trials ended, it came out that the prosecutor, Susan Cochran, she had improperly shared evidence with a CBS News program 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
And she was fired.
So even though it didn't directly affect the outcome of the trials, it still raises questions.
Right.
About the prosecutor's conduct.
Yeah. And now for an update. It's an update that might leave you with some mixed emotions.
Okay.
In 2022, Anthony Calabro was granted parole.
After how long?
After serving 16 years of his sentence, the parole board, they cited his age at the time of the crime, his participation in prison programs, his good behavior. They deemed him suitable for release.
So he's out now?
Yeah, he was initially placed in a minimum security facility, and then later released on a home plan with a curfew and electronic monitoring.
So Anthony's parole, I mean, it brings up a lot of questions about rehabilitation.
Mm-hmm.
Can someone who commits such a horrific crime ever truly be reformed.
It goes to the heart of our justice system, doesn't it? I mean, what is the purpose of punishment? Is it just about retribution, or is it about giving people a chance to change, to re-enter society?
And it forces us to really consider whether some acts are so terrible that forgiveness or second chances are just impossible.
This whole case, it really stays with you, doesn't it?
It does. It's hard to shake.
We've uncovered so much, the legal twists, the ethical questions, the whole issue of elder abuse. But for me, it always comes back to this one question. Does Anthony getting parole after what he did, does that mean he's truly changed? Or did the justice system fail?
Yeah, it's a question that really makes you think about, about justice, about forgiveness, about whether people can truly redeem themselves. And I don't think there's an easy answer.
On the one hand, our system, it's not just about punishment.
Right.
It's about rehabilitation. So if Anthony has really shown remorse, if he's taken responsibility, if he's really committed to change, maybe parole is the right outcome.
But how can you ever really know? How can you know if someone has truly changed deep down? I mean, can someone who plans and carries out the murder of a family member, someone who betrays that kind of love and trust, can they ever really be redeemed?
It makes you question everything, about human nature. Are we inherently good? Can we change no matter how awful our actions have been? Or are some acts so monstrous that they define a person forever?
It's a question that philosophers have been grappling with for centuries, really.
Right.
And this case it adds another layer to it, right? Because Anthony was so young when this happened, barely an adult.
Yeah.
So does that change things? Does his age make it more likely that he could change?
It just makes it all so much more complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to weigh the crime against the possibility that someone can grow, that they can be different.
Exactly. It's a real ethical and moral dilemma.
And I think what's important here is to avoid easy answers.
Yeah.
We can't just condemn him outright.
Right.
But we also can't just forgive and forget.
Absolutely.
We have to look at all sides of this and acknowledge how complicated it is.
There's a human element here too that we can't forget.
Absolutely. This case, it's more than just a headline. It forces us to look at ourselves, at the choices we make, and at the bigger questions we face as a society. Like, what does justice really mean? Can people really change after doing terrible things?
Yeah.
And how do we balance holding people accountable while still allowing for the possibility of redemption?
It's a lot to think about.
It is. And before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought, one last challenge. Don't let Marina's story just fade away. Let it be a reminder. Learn about elder abuse. Find out how to recognize the signs, support organizations that are working to stop it, and most importantly, be an advocate for the vulnerable people in your life, in your community.
Marina's life, it was cut short, tragically, but her story can remind us that we have a responsibility to protect each other, to care for those who need help. We can honor her memory by being more aware, more compassionate, and more active in making the world a safer place.
Beautifully said. And with that, I want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, learning doesn't end when the podcast is over.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process. So keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep talking about these issues.
Keep those conversations going.
Until next time,